Joining us now is Kathy Deck. She's an economist with the Center for Business and Economic Research at the University of Arkansas. She runs that center. Kathy, always good to have you with us. Thanks for being back.
Always glad to talk to you, Roby.
Let's talk about what's going on in the overall national economy, the numbers that you're looking at. We're told that we're not in a recession anymore. And so I guess you're looking at these numbers empirically. What's your assessment?
Well, I definitely think that we are done with our technical recession. The bad news is that recovery isn't going to feel a lot like recovery. We're kind of going to swim along with a series of good numbers, with a series of bad outcomes, and really I think 2010 is going to be the year of a couple of steps forward and then one step backward.
Well, I think kind of what you're talking about leads to my next question, and that is intuitively it does not feel like we're out of a recession. So how do you explain to people who are told that we're out of a recession technically but don't feel like we're out of a recession? How do you give them hope to hang on?
Well, when we look at what happened at the end of 2007 and 2008 and 2009, we saw economic output in this country really just fall off a cliff. We saw manufacturers stop making things. We saw construction stop. We saw really much of the activity that happens in the economy come to a grinding halt. Well, that's not true anymore. In fact, the economy is chugging along. We see manufacturing in particular improving as manufacturers go forward and increase their inventories. Basically, we've bought down everything that was made before, and so if we're going to continue to buy and sell things, we've got to produce more things at this point in time. Now, that holds true for non-durable goods. It holds true for things like automobiles. It holds true for things like houses. So we're at a point in this economy where we know we're going to continue to sell and buy, so it's time to start making some more things.
Do you think that some of that, too, is just pent-up consumer demand? I mean, you've had some people maybe delaying some purchases for a period of time.
Well,
maybe some people who were concerned. Maybe some people who are concerned about their financial situation, and now they feel a little bit more comfortable that there's some stability there?
Well, we have seen consumer confidence numbers come off their bottoms, but they're still not terribly strong. Consumers have been being very, very cautious. That is, for the first time in a long time, we're seeing them save a reasonable percentage of their incomes. And certainly there is pent-up demand, but I'm not sure that consumers are all that confident yet that their job is certain to be there tomorrow, that their stock portfolios and that their housing values are going to be increasing in the near term. And so you still see consumers being very, very cautious. It doesn't mean they're not purchasing things. It just means they're really, really thinking about whether they can put off those long-term purchases further or whether they are really at a critical need in their lives.
Let's turn our attention to Arkansas's economy. Our state unemployment rate bumped up in December by 3 percentage points to 7.7%. Sales tax collections at the state level and certainly at many of the larger communities at the local level have been falling in 2009, and we're seeing that a little bit here in early 2010. The unemployment and sales tax, big indicators to watch in terms of the economy. What are you reading in those?
Well, I think that goes back to what I mentioned before about the 2 steps forward and 1 step back. When you tell folks that the recession is over, that we're going forward, it seems like we should see those unemployment numbers come down. It seems like we might see sales tax revenues increase. But Arkansas has been a little late to the game all through this recession. We really didn't start feeling the effects from an employment and a tax revenue perspective until the middle to the late part of 2008, whereas the rest of the country began to see it a little bit earlier. And it wouldn't be surprising if our numbers don't improve as quickly as some of those at the national level, just again because we're not bouncing off the same bottom. It's been a little bit shallower, a little bit less severe here in Arkansas, and so we're not out of the woods yet. We will see improvements. We had some good housing numbers come at the end of the last year, but again, I think we're really going to get a lot of mixed messages, particularly in the early part of this year.
All right, you're stealing my thunder on housing. I'm going to come back to that. Let's stick with unemployment and sales tax collections. Do you see any pattern that maybe gives you a predictor of when we might see some of that rebound occur?
Well, when you look at unemployment numbers, clearly the key thing to be looking for is job creation. You have to see employers feel confident enough that their product is going to sell, that they start bringing on staff again. And we do see, a little bit here, a little bit there. The sectors that have really held up during this recession: education and healthcare, government, obviously. Actually, leisure and hospitality has held up pretty well. And then, of course, with the Fayetteville Shale, we see the natural resources sector doing okay. All of those sectors actually added jobs during this recession, not at the same rate as they had been before, perhaps. But we have to look to some of those places to see, to some of those sectors, to start seeing some job gains. And then what we really need to see is a stabilization in consumer spending, that consumer confidence again, so that our wholesale and retail trade numbers, our transportation numbers can improve.
Well, you mentioned housing earlier. Let's talk about home sales. We did see a good 2 months to the end of 2009. Was that a hiccup in terms of improvement, or do you think that we maybe have turned the corner in terms of home sales and the housing market improving in Arkansas?
I think it's a little early to call a turning of the corner. It was great to see a couple of months of good numbers. Those numbers obviously are propped up by the first-time homebuyer tax credit, by very attractive mortgage rates, and again, that kind of pent-up demand that you were talking about. As we go forward into 2010, there also obviously we're still experiencing the tax credits that are available not just for first-time home buyers, and that's going to help. But as the federal government gets out of the business of buying mortgage-backed securities, we're likely to see those mortgage rates creep up a little bit. And that's going to be a significant headwind for the housing market, not just nationally, but also here in Arkansas. Job creation, I can't say it enough, job creation is the key. People have to feel confident that they have a future in their communities, and that's really what's going to lead them to buy homes and the housing market to see sustainable recovery.
Well, you may have just answered my next question. Tell me what you see. You crawl through so much data. You see so much economic data out there to be able to have some insight on this. What's maybe one statistic that you see as most promising? What is maybe one statistic that you see as most troubling?
Well, when I look at the troubling statistics, it comes back to that consumer spending again. During the recession, Arkansas actually lost more jobs in the trade, transportation, and utilities industry than it had gained since 2000. And so we find ourselves in a situation where Arkansas is a state that is dependent upon the trade of goods, transportation obviously being a key sector as well, and that's really under duress because consumers don't have discretionary income to spend and are very loath to go out and make new purchases. Until we see a stabilization of consumer sentiment and consumers feeling like the future is bright, Arkansas is going to suffer. And of course, I haven't even mentioned manufacturing. Manufacturing was obviously suffering before the recession and has continued to suffer during the recession. But I think we're going to see, again, a stabilization in manufacturing employment, and that is perhaps a bright spot, just the stop of the Great Decline.
All right, Kathy Deck, she's the director of the Center for Business and Economic Research at the University of Arkansas, economist, presenting her quarterly forecast. Thank you so much for your time, Kathy. Always great to visit with you.
Thank you, Robbie.
We'll be back with more right after this.